To go with the old-fashioned speaker and microphone. For some reason, we're not able to connect. The gremlins here, internet gremlins, are against us today, and I am very, very sorry about that. We would like to have people post, though, if they want to post some chat. And we can show your chat, we can get your comments, but we're going to go ahead and do this where we're going to let Dr. Proctor talk just through my telephone, and he's going to go into the microphone, and that's about all we can do. Dr. Proctor is our guest today on our live stream. This is Geronimo, your host today. Geronimo 808 is our YouTube site. And behind me, you can see Waikiki Beach, Hawaii. You can see the beachfront bar there and hotel. And
I got a good connection.
Our guest has just rung in. Dr. Proctor, how are you, sir?
Very good. I'm very good. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear.
Well, I hope you are too. I trust you are, and I hope we can get people coming up on the chat. But let us proceed as planned.
I'm ready.
Okay, and I think we're getting your audio signal. So, yes, you are an author. You are a professor. You are a businessman. You are a United States Air Force veteran. You are many things, but you are, above all, a man who believes in the Bible and in God and Jesus. And you are an author of the book called Saving the Constitution, which I'm holding up right now in front of the camera for our viewers. So this is the book we're going to talk about here, Saving the Constitution. And the author is right with us on the line, Dr. Richard Proctor. And tell us, Doctor, how did you get inspired to write this book? It seems like the timing couldn't be better for a book about this.
Well, let me just explain a little bit, not much, a little bit. I wrote a Liberty series. It's 6 volumes about all the problems that our country's having with globalists. Mm-hmm. Named them, did all kinds of stuff. As I was writing the 4th volume, I saw how many violations the Supreme Court had of the Constitution. I was astounded how many violations there were. Well, I wasn't astounded. I just discovered 57, and they're not even big ones. I mean, they're not even little ones. That's just big ones. So I thought to myself, I need to write this book. I need to write a book that just talks about the Constitution. But I didn't do it. I thought about it, and I thought about it. Then the Liberty series was finished, and I thought about, and all of a sudden I got this compulsion. You must write this book. So I started to write the book in, I don't know, a couple of years ago, started to write it, finished it up in June of last year.
Wow.
No, June the year before now.
Uh-huh.
Hard to keep. No, June of last year, May of last year, I finished that book. Mm-hmm. And immediately when I finished the book, I had no more compulsion to write, but I had a compulsion to get out and teach people about it. Mm-hmm. So I wrote it because I was inspired to write it. I wrote it under inspiration because as I look at it now, I can't believe I wrote those words and did that stuff. I can't believe I found all the information that I found. It all came together. I was inspired to do it. It came out not this last summer, but the summer before, because January of last year was the beginning of this garbage, and this book came out just 6 months before that, and it fits right into what's going on. So the book is out 1.5 years now.
And how's the book doing? How's the book sale?
Right now, we're considered a best-selling author on Amazon internationally. We're selling hundreds of copies. Hundreds of copies are going out the door. Mm-hmm. People call, they want these books because these books teach them, explain to them what the Constitution says, every paragraph. It also includes the first paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence. And that's the foundation of our unalienable rights, or in other words, God's God-given rights.
Yes.
And no government can take away our God-given rights.
Yeah.
And the Declaration of Independence says, if a government takes away your God-given rights, you have the right to alter or abolish that government.
Yes.
That's what the Declaration of Independence says. That is our authority, to alter or abolish a government that destroys our God-given rights.
And who wrote the Declaration of Independence?
Well, the guy who wrote it was Thomas Jefferson, but it had to be approved and signed by all the guys that were there in that group together. There's
Right.
a lot of signatures at the bottom of that.
Right. So it was Benjamin Franklin. I think he had some help, had a few other people, of course, help him write it.
Yes. There's a whole bunch of people in that signed it.
Yeah.
There's like 56 or 57 that signed the Constitution, and we have a similar number that signed the Declaration of Independence.
Wow. All right. So give us, please, just a little lead up to this. I have been trying to study some, even going back to the Magna Carta, which is sort of where the codification of English common law started. And that was in the year 1215. It was 800 years ago. And the nobles of England surrounded King John, who was a bad king, and made him sign that document giving them rights, which we still have today. Those rights, among them, are the right that no one can take from you your property, your life, your liberty, anything from you without the due process of law, and that includes a trial by jury of your peers. That's where this kind of appeared first. Not even the king could do that. And that's really a very landmark part of Western civilization. And that was 800 years ago. So now we fast forward to this.
I'd like to include one more thing in the property rights that you just talked about.
Yes.
We have a right for employment. We have a right to go to work.
Yes.
We have that is a right the government cannot take from us legally.
Right. And I believe the phrase, that old English phrase is called the pursuit of happiness. I believe that's what that means, to work a job that you choose, that you want. And
your own pursuit.
Yeah. So that was well known to all these men, the founders that we call, Thomas Jefferson, Franklin, Adams, all these men. They were well schooled, of course, with British history, British law. It's a constitutional monarchy there in England. But they learned these things. They knew these things. And then they believed the Bible about the inalienable rights given us by men. By God, given to man by God, men and women. So they knew all this. They had this foundation, and this is called the common law, which we are supposed to be operating under. And it basically, like it says, it is rooted in common sense and natural law and the traditions and the normal ways of the practices of what was acceptable to people. And that is now fast forward to the 1700s. And there was this thing called the Articles of Confederation that they started putting together, the 13 colonies. And then this is more your expertise. So please, can you pick it up there?
Right. Well, we can start with the Articles of Confederation. All of these states wanted to unite, all 13. We call them states. They call themselves colonies. Means the same thing. What they are is independent organizations, independent countries. Utah, Hawaii, Nevada are independent countries of their own right. Now, not countries really, but states. Mm-hmm. In other words, they have power. They have more power than they're ever doing, ever expend. They can do lots of things. They have the power to do them. They did not give up their powers to the federal government. Yes. They gave the federal government some powers, but when it was in the Articles of Confederation, if anybody wanted to do anything, it had to be unanimous, and that caused a significant problem because there was always one colony that wouldn't agree. So if one colony wouldn't agree, they couldn't do it. And that was one of the reasons they were having so much trouble financing the Revolutionary War, because they could not get money to do it. Congress couldn't get any money to do the war. So George Washington put a lot of his fortune into the war just to make it happen. And others did too, not just him. Others did also to make this war happen. Now, the British, we were a colony of Britain. And here we had soldiers living in the homes of our colonists, those people, and they were forced to take those British officers and enlisted them and put them in their homes and feed them and take care of them at no charge, at no rent, no help, no nothing. And it was an irritant. And then the British government started taxing, the Stamp Act, all those things, and all the acts that they do. And the guys got really angry about taxation without representation. In other words, taxation by another entity.
That always seems to be the trigger point, in every revolution. Somehow taxes, that gets under the skin of everybody. That's the big one. Go ahead,
yes,
please.
Yes, it is. And we're under the skin, under our skin now. The IRS is unconstitutional. It is against the Constitution. It is not legal, null and void.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
mm-hmm.
we still have to pay it because the government says we have to pay it, but it's not right.
And headquartered in Puerto Rico for some strange reason, not in the U.S. mainland. The IRS.
They're a private organization, part of the Illuminati, which the Federal Reserve Bank is also, and so is the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. They're all a part of the Illuminati, this large group of globalists that are controlling our country and our world and are trying to control us individually. They want to destroy this Constitution that we have. Well, after they tried to work with the Articles of Confederation, and it wouldn't work. So they said, states, all the colonies sent people to a convention to write another constitution. Now, the first one they attempted to do was in Annapolis, and that was in 1786. Couldn't put it all together. People didn't come. It didn't work out. So they canceled that and started for the next one in 1787. Now, in 1787, it came together. When the colonies sent the people to the convention that established the Articles of Confederation, they got instructions. You do not write a new code. You use what we've got already. You just alter it. You cannot change it. You cannot change it. Okay? Well, when they got there, Madison said, we're going to change it. And everybody said, okay. As soon as the gavel dropped, they began to change it. They threw out the Articles of Confederation completely and wrote the Constitution, which we have now. Now, that's a very important item because the Constitution we have now was absolutely inspired by Jesus Christ himself. How can I say that? Because I can look at the selection of president. I can look at the Article 2, Article 2, paragraph, let me make sure I get my paragraphs because there's a lot of paragraphs in these things. Article 2, section. Section 1, Section 1, paragraphs 2 and 3, they're combined together to form a way to select the President of the United States. Now, that particular system of selection of the President had never been in any government before. It had never been used. It was completely new, foreign. Nothing about that was in any other government, but it got put into our Constitution, and it is a perfect way to select the president for a republic. Mm-hmm. It works very simply. The states each select their electoral members. Mm-hmm. Each of those electoral members meet on the same date, every state, and they meet in their states, and they sit down and each selects two. people, one outside the state, one inside, or both outside. They have to have one outside, but they can also have both outside. Anyway, so then they make that selection. All of that is put together and tallied. Every name is tallied. These are nominations. It says vote in the Constitution itself, but it really meant nominate, because they didn't vote. What they did was they sent names forward. They nominated names forward, and they nominated them, and they went to the Senate, the president of the Senate, just like we just did last Wednesday. We went to the president of the Senate. In this case, it was, in all cases, it's the vice president of the United States. He's in charge. Well, this one, last week, abrogated his responsibility. He did not go by the Constitution. He did not do the job he was supposed to do. He didn't want to do the job he was supposed to do.
So he had
the
he had the power to actually send the electors back to the states.
Yes, he did. He had the power to do that. But he had more power than that. I'm going to read a little bit out of the 20th Amendment for a second here, guys.
Yes.
I want to read a little bit out of the 20th Amendment, Section 3. He had more power than just sending them back. Let me read what it says here. If a president-elect shall have failed to qualify. Now, we've defined president as a guy who has been selected by the Electoral College. In reality, the Electoral College nominates. So I would change the word here. It says until a president nominated, nominated by the electors. We're meeting in that meeting now, and he's looking at it. You've got to be qualified. President-elect shall have, if the president-elect or the president that these people have proposed shall be failed to qualify, then the vice president-elect elect as president. But if he fails to qualify, then Congress will choose somebody else. Okay, now let's just look and see. Using the words of the Section 3 of the 20th Amendment, Biden had the authority to do this.
Pence.
He could have
Pence. Yeah, Pence, you mean. Pence, right. Vice president.
That's what I said. Who did I say?
Well, you said the B word. We don't want to say the B word.
Oh, no. Pence had the right to say, based on 20th Amendment and Article in Section 3, Paragraph 1, he had the right to say, the gentleman who we have received as president is incompetent. He cannot put two sentences together. He cannot represent us in foreign lands with foreign statesmen. He doesn't have the mental capacity to do this job. He is unqualified. He could then say his running mate, Harris, is not qualified. She's not a citizen of the United States. 14th Amendment has two acts to be a citizen. One born here, next under the jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is defined by the parents of the child. Her parents, neither one were United States citizens. Therefore, she is not a citizen. She hasn't even been naturalized. She is not a citizen of the country. Therefore, she is not qualified. And she's also not natural born, so she's not qualified twice. But most important, she's not even a citizen.
Wow.
Now we're going to look at Pence. He's here, but he's violated his oath of office. He's violated the Constitution. He's not trustworthy, so he's not qualified. And I'm the only one, and Trump is the only one who stands there qualified. Now, Pence wouldn't have said that about himself, but Trump could say these words now.
Yeah.
And Pence has shown that he's not qualified because he's violated the Constitution and abrogated his responsibility. Now, I am the only one standing here that's qualified. I've been elected by at least 74 billion people in this country, and I am qualified to be president, and I meet the qualifications of the 20th Amendment. Nobody else that's in this pattern does. So I'm the only one left standing. Now, he can say that, and it's completely constitutional. We don't have to worry about the Electoral College. We don't have to look at it. We're just talking about qualified people. None of them are qualified except Trump today. None of them. So you don't have to worry about an electoral college. None of that. These people don't even pass the qualification test.
I see. So what is that? How do we bring that into today's realm? We heard on the news today that the President Trump, he has signed something very important to solve this big dilemma, the Gordian knot.
Oh, yes.
Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yes, last night, give or take a few minutes of midnight, coming into Sunday, he invoked the Insurrection Act of 1807, signed by Thomas Jefferson. That Insurrection Act is I'm reading now from the definition, is a United States federal law that empowers the President of the United States to deploy U.S. military and federalize, it says National Guard, but it should say militia, and federalize militia troops, but it can be National Guard troops also, within the United States in particular circumstances, such as to suppress civil disorder, insurrection, and rebellion. Now, those three words are a part of Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 15. So they're referring back to that article. Insurrection, rebellion, invading forces, disorder, anything like that, enact the laws. That's what paragraph 15 of the Article 1, Section 8 allows. So he can use the Guard to exercise the powers of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 15, but he doesn't really need the Insurrection Act because he already has it in the Constitution itself. But we have the Insurrection Act, also federal law. So we have two things. This act also provides statutory exemption to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1887, which limits the use, which in other words, habeas corpus. It can destroy habeas corpus, and that's what Lincoln did. He used the same thing to save the nation. There's a lot of people who talk bad about Lincoln. Lincoln saved the United States. Okay?
Yes.
And they say that Lincoln destroyed states' rights. Lincoln did not destroy states' rights. The states' rights were destroyed in 1816 by John James Marshall, the Supreme Court Justice. He destroyed the Supreme Court rights in 1816. The states' rights in 1816, and took them to himself. Lincoln did not do it. It already had been done. But he did keep the government together and the country together. And that's important. And he did have the right to do those things per Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 15. Mm-hmm. He had the power. He had the power under the Insurrection Act of 1807. He had the power. He exercised it. Trump has that power today. Trump, last night, give or take a little of midnight, invoked the Insurrection Act. So he is preparing to take over the country with the military. That's what that says.
So does that mean that there is no government, no constitution, that Trump is the government and the military until how long? How does this work now?
Well, you asked the question, does that mean that caused this? No. We lost our Constitution on Wednesday the 6th. That's when the Constitution was completely thrown under the bus.
Yes.
Those people, those criminals in that election business, they said, we don't care about the Constitution. We're going to do what we want to do, period. They say they're following the Constitution, but I can say that I'm following something and I'm not doing it. And they're not doing it either. They don't even know what it says. None of those guys even know what it says.
No.
I could take every one of those people in that Congress and Senate aside, every one of them, and ask them very simple questions about the Constitution. They could not answer. They don't know them.
Okay.
I can do that with almost anybody in the country, and that's a real pity. So I'm trying to help people learn. Saving the Constitution describes all these functions of the Constitution. The president is well aligned in the Constitution with what he's doing.
Amen. So, well, I would like to make an observation here just really quickly that I didn't know this till last night, but I found out that actually January 6th has importance with the heavenly realm since I am a minister, but I was told in the Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox calendar and their church, their ecclesiastical calendar, January 6th is Epiphany Day. Epiphany. Now, we may not know what Epiphany is ecclesiastical, but we know what it means, that we've all had Epiphany moments, that we have had a realization of a truth come to us. So the Epiphany is the day Jesus was baptized in the River Jordan by John the Baptist. That's Epiphany Day. Just happened to fall on January 6th, the day of the infamous Capitol protest. And then January 7th, where they ran over into the next morning till 3:30 in the morning. That is an interesting day also. That actually is the Orthodox Church, the Orthodox Christmas Day, January 7th. So I believe in miracles, and I believe things have importance. There's no coincidence. I believe in the long run, we're going to look at this and believe that we were given back our country on January the 7th. I know it seemed like a disaster, but, they, in so doing, they tore down the illusions that we had. And now everything is out in the open, which is apocalypse. Actually, the Greek word apocalypse means unveiling and getting everything out in the open. So forgive me for getting that.
I'd like to mention a couple of other things along that same route.
Yes.
Trump has always been ahead of all these people that have been trying to get him out.
Oh, yeah.
They've never been able to do it. Okay, now, here we have an instance where they're trying to not allow the people's choice to be president. Now, Trump knew that they couldn't. He knew these things were all being violated, but he also knew that the American people did not know that, and they weren't secure in it.
Yes.
So he just let these people hang out there and dangle on a thread. Dangle out there until he finally got all of them to dangle out there, including Pence.
Yeah.
His vice president. He also got him out there dangling. Every one of them could have chosen different. They did not. Pence could have done, using Article 3, said right exactly what I just said. I'm sorry, not Article 3. The 20th Amendment, Section 3.
Yes.
He could have said, these people, Biden and this Lady Harris, are not qualified. They do not meet the qualifications of Section of the Constitution. They are not qualified. Therefore, they cannot be selected for president or vice president. And throw them out. He could have done that. That's constitutional right there in the amendment, Amendment 20. He could have done that. Then he could have said Trump is qualified because he meets all the requirements of it, and he's been chosen by 74 million people of this country at least, and he's qualified. Since the others are not, he is president of the United States. He could have done that without ever even looking at the Electoral College. Didn't even have to argue about that. He could have done that. That's constitutional law. It's right there in Amendment 20. Precisely.
The question begs then, why did he not do that?
Because he's been paid off and he's expecting power and authority in the new regime of something where he knows he's not going to be vice president because the young lady Harris is, you see, according to their view. So since that but he will get benefits, he'll get gobs of money from the Soros group because they're the people who are behind it. Gobs of money from the globalists, and he'll get all kinds of book deals and all kinds of stuff from all the media and all the printed establishments because they're all a part of this deal too, and they want to reward him for doing what he did. He saved their butts because you see he could have invoked the 20th Amendment and thrown both of those to the wind, and the only one left standing would have been Trump. Could have done that, and then he would have been left standing too. If he had done it, he would be an honest, true patriot. But he didn't do it, and Trump gave him the rope. He and Trump agreed to what he was going to do before he went there, and then he quit, took off. I'm not going to do it, and then that shows us and Trump and everybody that he is a part of the problem, not a part of the solution.
Yeah. Amen. And then let us remember there is one young lady lost her life there during all of this melee and all of this needless whatever went on there, and was never a mention at all of her all night. And that was actually a crime scene, technically or legally. The whole Capitol was a crime scene, and how they reconvened back in the chambers is just unimaginable. But they had it on the agenda. They just had to do it. But they ended up doing it on January 7th on Christmas Day, I guess for a reason, because we got our country back, I believe, because of what they did, not how they did.
Absolutely. We got it back because of that.
Yeah.
Let me mention something else that has been brought to my attention. I was with Doug Hagman and Randy Taylor, and we were watching these events that transpire and commentating about them as they were transpiring on the 6th. We watched President Trump did his talk at about 10 minutes to 1. We watched that talk. We watched what was going on and saw these things. But I didn't notice this until it was brought to my attention, okay? He was late. He did not arrive on time to give that speech. He was late.
Yeah.
And he didn't do a short speech. He did a long speech. And the reason he did was to keep his people, his supporters, all 500,000 or more, up away from the Capitol building, so that they were not involved in the fiasco that the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa guys did. He kept his supporters away from that so they couldn't be accused of being a part of it. Not at all. So that way, he was late. He kept his supporters away. They knew that they were going to go in. The Antifa guys, they were brought by buses, escorted by the police in Washington, D.C. to come in and disrupt. This was all a planned event. They knew that all these people were going to show up to support Trump. So the plan was, let's get them involved in a bad act. Well, Trump kept them from being involved in that bad act by keeping his top longer until those people didn't have a chance to be around the Capitol to be involved in it. And I think that was a good plan on his part. It was not a coincidence.
Well,
there are no coincidences in government.
No.
Government always plans everything it's doing.
Well, you're absolutely right. I interviewed a man 2 days ago who was there, and he was there during the president's speech. And when it ended, he said, strangely enough, they were like escorted by the police to the backside of the Capitol, the east side, where they were tear gassed and assaulted with tear gas for just being there. And they were under the direction of the police when they were tear gassed. And they didn't know, but yes, all the violence and all had already been taking place on the other side. But they were like Pied Piper led right in to be, in the cameras and to show them like they did it, but it was already done. And he said they were all peaceful. They did nothing, but they were actually escorted all the way to the backside of the Capitol, and they went up the steps unimpeded, unhindered, nobody to say anything. And then they saw people breaking windows and doors and glass and going in that side, but the problem had started on the other side. So it was quite obviously not what it was shown to be.
I observed all those people in the back of the Capitol building. There was some scaffolding back there.
Yes.
I observed all of that.
Yes.
I saw it happening, but I did not realize that they were escorted to that point.
Yeah.
I knew that they were tear gassed.
Yes.
The Lord intervened and blew the tear gas away.
Yeah.
I believe that was a divine intervention.
Yeah.
The breeze came up and blew the tear gas away.
Amen. Well, he was there with a group, friends and things, family, but they were totally peaceful. But he said there were people who were not peaceful, and they were not part of their group, and they were cursing and swearing and causing trouble. And they were not, when they left even, they were amazed to hear what was supposedly done up there by the Trump people, because it wasn't anything like what they had been involved in, what they were experienced with nothing true.
I have also had an on-the-side person telling me exactly the same thing.
So let's move on to another subject, though. If you would do us a favor, stay with us a little bit longer, please. That
however long you want.
Thank you.
I'm at your command.
Thank you, Dr. Proctor. We're talking to Dr. Richard Proctor. We're flying on alternate power here, more or less. Unfortunately, everything is not working. I guess we are being censored, shut down. I don't know, like Parler. We have read now that Parler is going dark tonight. They've been censored. The president's been censored, and I guess we are being impeded, but we're still going, and we're still going to keep going as long as Dr. Proctor will stay with us. And would you please tell us a little bit about money? Money is one of your fortes.
Oh, yeah.
You have a school, a whole school, and on economics and a degree, and you have a book. I don't have it, unfortunately, with me. I have it here at home, but I have your Liberty series. I'm showing that here. You wrote 1,000 pages in the Liberty series of history.
Oh, no, that's 2,000 pages.
2,000.
2,200 pages.
Pardon, 2,200 pages, and it's 6 volumes. And that's available through your school, provisinstitute.com. And I will put that on the description of this video. But tell us about money. I love to hear you talk about money. What is money? We don't really understand it. What is money? How does it work?
Oh, yeah. Money is fascinating. How does it work? Well, let me explain something that's going on right now in our particular environment. The Congress is spending money, but they don't have it to spend. They're borrowing money. Who are they borrowing the money from? The Federal Reserve. When the Federal Reserve, which is a private organization, loans them money, it doesn't really loan them any money. It just makes marks on a ledger. And then the marks on the ledger become money. Okay, that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
The government gives them a bond, and they write a check for money that isn't money. It's just pure, nice air. And every time the government does one of these things and spends another $1 trillion, it incurs a debt for us. Now, if we went to the Constitution and we went to paragraph 5 of Article 1, Section 8, and I'm going to read that paragraph. What it says here. Section 5, to coin money, regulate the value thereof. Well, now just a minute. Regulate the value thereof. What does regulate the value of money mean? The value of money is determined by how much of it there is. Now, isn't that an easy sentence? How much of it is determines the value. If there's $1 million and the country needs $1 million to operate, then that's a good balance. If there's $10 million and the country only needs $1 million to operate, that is not a good balance. Every time these people print another $1 billion, another 100,000, another million, any number, it adds to the size of the money supply. As the money supply grows, it becomes less valuable. That's what inflation is. As there's more and more money, then the money that you have in your pocket, under the mattress, any place, becomes less valuable. Nothing you can do about it. You got somebody in your savings account, and you're getting 1/4 of a percent interest, and inflation is 6%. You're on the negative side. You can't save enough money to get ahead in that kind of a situation. Money is the root of all evil. No. That's not what the Bible says. The love of money is the root of all evil. Money is an inert item. It just exists.
Yeah.
It can't be evil. It can't be good. But it can be used for evil and used for good. And the people who use it are the ones who are loving money or not. I have money to take care of my home, take care of my food, take care of my family, all those kinds of things. I have money for that purpose, and we do that. Okay? But if someone comes along and they have a need, I take care of them. Because I have the means to do that.
Yes.
I mean, I'm LDS, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we're asked to donate, just as many of the Protestant faiths are, to donate 10% of our income. I do that just the same as these people, the others in the Protestant faiths do the same thing. That's what the 10% is. That's what the tithe is. You find that in the New Testament, the offering, tithes and offerings. You also find that in the Old Testament.
Yes.
These are part of God's plan to show him that we're not loving money, we're using money. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire. If you use it properly, you're not wrong. People say, well, the rich guys are bad. No, rich guys aren't bad. The use of their money might be bad, but you need to know how they use the money, whether you know it's being used bad or not. The globalists, they use money. They have stash. They have so much money. You could take $1,000 bills and you could fill the Smithsonian with $1,000 bills, and it would have touched the money they have.
Well,
I've been involved in trading programs that the wealthy do. I tell you what, you go to the bank and you get 0.25%. These men know how to get 10% a week.
Well,
not 0.25% a year.
Well,
10% a week.
Please,
they know how to do that.
Tell us something. All right, this is something fascinated me. I heard you describe this about money as a debt-based system, but tell us again now. Say when a person buys an automobile, and please describe that process.
I'll go through that process. When you and I go in to buy, we go to the dealership and we're going to buy a car. Let's assume, Ted, that you're going to get a $50,000 car tomorrow.
Right.
Well, the normal situation is that you would go to the financial institution and beg them to give you some money so you could buy the car. And they make you put the car up as collateral. They make you prove you have income. They make you do all these things. And finally they say, well, okay, we'll allow you to have the money. Isn't that nice of them? Okay, now, what does that really mean? They're going to send a check. They're not going to send any money to the dealership. They're going to send a check. Now, when you deposit, let me say Jim over in the next yard, he deposits $10,000 in the bank. How much can the bank loan? $10,000. No. They can loan $90,000 on that $10,000. $90,000.
Wow.
Then that's where the $40,000 came for your car. But it's the $10,000. They keep that because that's what's required by the deposit requirement, and they loan out $90,000 that doesn't exist. That's where the $40,000 comes for you to get your car. It doesn't exist. So, but they still give it, and it still is value to the dealership when it gets it because we accept that as value, and the bank knows it. Now, when you go to pay the $2,000 a month, you go the first month to pay your $2,000. The question is, what does the bank do with it? Now, I just recently had a conversation with a banker about that very thing. What does the bank? Oh, we credit it to the principal, and we credit it to interest and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I said, that's just smoke and mirrors. She was upset. That's just smoke and mirrors. All you're really doing is putting it in what you guys call an income investment account. Income investment money. Capital investment money. They put it in a capital investment, that $2,000. What do they do with a capital investment? Well, the first thing they do with that $2,000 is make it $18,000. I mean, immediately it's $18,000, not two. And immediately then they begin to loan out $18,000. And they do that with every payment that comes into the bank. They do that with every credit card payment you make. You go to a restaurant, you are borrowing money, the bank pays them with a check, and the bank then capitalizes it 9 times, and they begin to loan the money out. So everything you spend with a credit card is a loan that allows the banks to print 9 times more than you just spent. How do you like that? That's how it works. Every day, the banks in the United States are required, because they're all under the Federal Reserve, and your credit union is too, don't think it's not. They have a different insurance policy. They don't use the FDIC. They use an insurance policy to do with the credit unions. But as soon as they become big enough, then they have to go to the FDIC. The FDIC is not an insurance agency. It's a controlling factor. The FDIC does not go to a bank to see whether or not they're doing loans properly. They go to a bank to see what they can do to control the bank. And if the bank's not doing everything the Federal Reserve tells them to do, then they can close that bank. They'll find a way to do it, period. They'll look at some of the loans and they'll say, we don't like that loan, shut the bank down. And they'll do that. That's what happens. These guys are not friends of anybody. But each day, when the people make their payments to the bank, money is going to be extra because they can't loan it all out. It's impossible. Can't loan all the money out that's coming in. So some of that money every day is sent to the Federal Reserve. Now, the Federal Reserve puts it in a deposit and pays them a little interest for it and gives it back to them if they need it. But they don't need it. They don't need it. So at the end of the year, the Federal Reserve begins to send, or maybe every month, the Federal Reserve sends money to the globalists in Europe. Every day money is sent, so to speak, to the globalists in Europe. We owe we owe debt, consumer debt in our country, over $18 trillion. Now, I'm not talking about the national debt. I'm talking about the debt that we as consumers have gone down and signed a piece of paper, so we'll pay it, we'll pay it, we'll pay it. $18 trillion and climbing. They collect all the deposits and all the interest off of that $18 trillion every year, and most of it goes to the European globalists, plus the money the federal government sends, in addition, on the interest of the loans that they take to put money into our system to cause inflation. Folks, we are in a disastrous situation with money. Disastrous. And it's just getting worse. When Trump started, the national debt was somewhere around 20 million, 21. It's now up to 28 billion.
Trillion.
I'm sorry, let's use the right word here. 28 trillion. That's what's happened during his time. But what has really happened, it's this blasted hoax that they call COVID-19. That hoax has caused us, the state governments told us to stay home. You can't go to work. So everybody's without money. So they borrow more. And they borrow more. That takes more money back to the Federal Reserve and to Europe. And then the government sends us some money. And that we spend that money. That money was not a part of the taxes. It was borrowed. It increased the money supply. The banks got a lot of it to pay off stuff. That increased the money supply. Everything, as the money supply increases, inflation increases. Inflation is just a measurement of how much money there is based on how much goods and services there are. And if there are just the same amount of goods and services, but the money doubles, then the price of everything goes up twice. It all doubles. That's what inflation is. That's how it works. That's how money works. Money is not currency. That's the way we use it to get along. But the real purpose of money is not wealth. The real purpose of money is to allow government to control us. How about that? And they do.
And that gets back to taxes we had talked about before, not Texas, but taxes. And
but the federal government could have. Now, let me explain something that could happen. There's another paragraph in Article 8. In Article 5, Article 1, Section 8, and that says, borrow money on the credit of the United States. That's paragraph 2. So they're authorized to borrow money. And they're authorized to print money. That's paragraph 5. Now, if they borrow money from an institution, they have to pay interest on it.
Yeah.
But if they print money, they don't have to pay interest on it.
All right.
So if the federal government needs $1 billion, today it goes to the Federal Reserve, and we wind up on the note for $1 billion to that private company, plus all the interest to that private company. If the government just printed it, which they have the power to do, that same $1 million, it wouldn't cost us a dime, and there would be no debt. And it would have the same effect on our economy.
And President Kennedy died, I think, because of that, right?
Oh yes, I believe that, and Lincoln did too. Lincoln was murdered because he was going to start using U.S. dollars, and Kennedy was going to start using U.S. dollars. And that's what happens. These guys know that their money comes from credit. and they can't have credit if the money is created by the government. Doesn't matter how the money comes to the government, it uses it. So if it borrows it from the Federal Reserve, then we are obligated to pay a non-debt back because they don't ever give us any money. If they just print it, we're not obligated to pay any debt, and the effect is precisely the same on the economy. So all we've been is hoodwinked into borrowing money from the Federal Reserve. That was set up by the globalists in 1910. 1910, they went to Jekyll Island and set it up to fleece the Americans. We got to get all this money. We got to get it. They got lots of money. Let's take it away from them. So they went down to Jekyll Island, figured out how to do it, brought it back, tried to put it out, lost. Then they changed their name from Central Bank to Federal Reserve. Everybody thought that would be good, and it was passed. But even then, it was passed on the sly at dark at night. Christmas time came.
Yeah.
Christmas time came, and a lot of the congressmen went home. A lot of the congressmen didn't go home. They stayed. As soon as the others had gone, this is 1913, as soon as the others had gone, they immediately went out and passed this bill because the quorum was there. The majority of the quorum said, yes, we're going to do it. So that's how we got saddled with this thing. And then our buddy Wilson signed it the next day. And then the Federal Reserve didn't have any money, private company. In 14, they began to sell stock. You and I couldn't buy the stock. The stock was all bought by the banks that are owned by the European banks. Therefore, all the profit goes from us to the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve to the banks in the United States owned by overseas banks. Then it goes to the overseas banks, and the owners of the overseas banks get all that profit in their pockets.
So there's nothing.
What's happening with money?
So there's nothing federal about the Federal Reserve, and there's no reserve about the Federal Reserve. It's all a private corporation, right, with stockholders and shareholders.
You've said it exactly right. It's a private organization that counterfeits money, and they get away with it.
All right, back to the car illustration. All right, one I wanted to ask you, when you finally pay off that last payment on your car loan to the bank, something funny happens to that money. I understand that goes away, that disappears, or what happens to that money they created to loan you for the car? It's gone back to...
Yes, no. Some folks call that destruction of money because the loan's paid off.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, the bank creates money 9 times the depositors.
Mm-hmm.
So when the loan is paid off, all they've really done, they've just borrowed more and more and more money. Now, I got to say the words right. What they've really done is every month they've used the pieces to print more money, to print more money, to print more money. When the loan is paid off, then that loan goes away. But the bank now has free money to loan out to somebody else, and they do. So temporarily, for just a couple of days, that money that was borrowed, that $40,000, disappears.
Right.
They loan out the 49 times 40. What is that? 360,000. They loan out that money immediately again. So there's no loss because the next day it's loaned again. There's no loss. Think about this too. When you think about liabilities, you have liabilities. You have to pay things, right? If you have a washing machine and you haven't paid for it, you have a liability. You have rent or you have house payments, you have a liability. All right, that's the liabilities. When you hear that a bank has been closed, some other bank will come up and say, we will take care of all the liabilities. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of the liabilities. But their definition of liabilities and your definition of liabilities is different.
Mm-hmm.
A liability to the bank is the money they owe to the depositor.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the money they take and multiply by 9 and loan out.
Mm-hmm.
So when a bank gets all the liabilities from another bank, they get the income stream from those liabilities. The liabilities to a bank is income.
It's good. It's a good thing.
A cost.
Wow.
It's income.
Wow.
So when those banks sign up and say, boy, we're going to protect you, we're going to accept all the liabilities. What that means is we're going to get all that money and all that income stream for ourselves. We're going to have more money than we had before. We don't lose anything, they gain. They gain millions of dollars.
So the debt-based system, our money is based on debt, not value. I mean, it has no value, the paper money. It's no
value at all. Remember that paragraph says coin money and regulate the value thereof?
Yes.
How do you regulate the value of money? By controlling how much there is. We have abrogated, we have given the Federal Reserve the right to value our money, and that's the problem, because they print it. If the government printed it like it's supposed to, then there wouldn't be any debt, and the money would be valued by goods and services, and there wouldn't be any debt. Now, if the government prints $20 billion more than it should, there'll be inflation. But at least we don't have any interest against it, and we don't have to pay anything back. The inflation is still the same. So we still have the same loss, but we have a double loss if we borrow it.
So is there a chance that we can escape this octopus, this system, this debt-based slavery? Is there a way you think under now with the new regime? I guess this is the new regime we were talking about.
If the new regime wants to, they can void that law of 13 and send the Federal Reserve packing.
Wow.
They can do it the same day. They can do it. Send them packing.
Wow.
Yeah. Revoke that law.
Wow.
Send them packing.
Wow. So we're talking to Dr. Richard Proctor of the Provis Institute. It's the Economics Degree Institute. You can get an online economics degree, a real one, and learn a lot from Dr. Richard Proctor, Ph.D. And he's the author of the book, Saving the Constitution. We're talking about that with him today. And he's author of the Liberty series, which I have one here, the Liberty series. There's 6 volumes in there. And it talks about the Federal Reserve and money and other things. But if you really want to know about money, he has another book called Bathroom Economics. And that one will teach you a lot of the fundamentals. And then you can go to Provis Institute, sign up, and really get a class and education on economics. And how long does it take to go through your course, Dr. Proctor?
It's up to the individual. Let me just explain how that works so everybody would know if they're interested. First, it's priced so that anybody can afford it without taking any money out of the budget. Well, you take a little. The degree, bachelor's degree, if people want to sign up for that, is $350 a year. No fee. Well, there's a registration fee of $99. After that, there are no more fees. The textbooks are the Liberty series, and that's 6 books at $20 each. That's the total. So at the $350 is annually. Can you finish it in a year? I have a young lady, Virginia Bowl, appears to me that she's going to finish it in 1 year.
Wow. And this is a home study course. You kind of do it on your own with curriculum and your book.
You select what courses you want to take. I send you the articles. You read the articles, write a synopsis about each of the articles. Things you agree with, things you don't agree with. I don't mind. I just want you to think. And I'll give you ideas to think about when those come. And the articles will all teach things about economics, all of them, and about politics, because it is political economics too. Anyway, so it'll do that. And as the time goes on, you will learn and understand what we mean by the conspiracy. You will learn and understand what we mean by money. You'll learn and understand what we mean when I say that our government's being destroyed by the globalists. You'll see all of that. It's all explained in all of my books. I wrote these books so the information would be available. I had no idea this was going to happen. And it's so important now for you guys to have these books, because then you know, when you read through them, you know that what the government is doing. For example, when the towers went down in 9/11, I knew within 2 weeks that it was a globalist business to destroy a part of our country. And this time it was to get a war started in the Middle East. I knew that. It was also to get an excuse for the Patriot Act and the Home Secure Home, that other organization.
Homeland Security.
Homeland Security. Yeah, that one too. That and the Patriot Act, which are really just bills to control us. That's all they are.
I'm showing a picture right now to our audience of myself standing in front of the ruins of the Twin Towers 2 weeks after 9/11 in New York City. I was there the night before. I flew out just hours before the attack. And then when I came back 2 weeks later, I went down to ground zero. The cross, like the beam, you remember the picture of that steel beam that looks like the shape of a cross that's standing? It's there in this photograph behind me. And that was quite a moving experience, I have to say. And I was quite taken. It was emotional to go down there. And now to see what's happened to New York City. I mean, what they could not do with bombs and planes and other things, they have succeeded in doing with a tiny germ, apparently, to New York City.
That doesn't even exist. They've done it with fear.
Yeah.
Not even a tiny germ. It doesn't exist. And I have the information to show people, if they're interested, why I can say with gusto and honesty that COVID-19 doesn't exist. So this thing that they say is a super one, it's going to be 5 times more potent. Well, 5 times 0 is still 0. It doesn't exist.
Well, yeah. Well, Mama said, you take your cod liver oil and get your good night's sleep and work hard, and you'll be healthy. You don't need all of this other vaccine, other things.
Now, let me mention something else about this, Ted. The people are getting sick. What are they getting sick with?
Who knows?
They're getting a natural flu that we've had every year for decades. It's the same thing. We don't have any flu cases this year. Nobody's got the flu this year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's neat. That means that COVID-19 cured the flu. It's curing the common cold, too. Yes. Oh, boy, we've never been able to do this before. All they do is name it something different. And the CDC has admitted 90%, more than 90% of all of these so-called COVID deaths aren't.
It's all
and
words.
10%
Yes.
are a flu. They don't say it's a flu. It is a flu. There are two concepts going on here: the regular flu and this thing that doesn't exist. And they've lumped them both under the concept of COVID-19. And they've scared us to death with Hollywood pictures. Hollywood fabrication.
Well, this is it. It's all about pictures and words. Pictures and words.
Yes.
That's where the war is. All of that.
I would submit to anybody to find me anyone in the United States that has fallen dead in the street and had blood gushing out of their face. Find me one person, one instance where that occurred. You cannot.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen in China either. That kind of stuff was fabricated for us to scare us to death, so we would do what the government wants us to do. And wearing the mask is a symbol. I'm ready to be a slave. That's what the wearing of the mask means.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to be a slave. Tell me what to do next so I can be a slave. That's what the mask means.
Well, it seems like we're trying to figure out how to unscramble eggs. And Dr. Proctor, I never learned how to do that yet, but I think that we're going to have to find a way just to get back and start over. Apparently, our president has signed that act to invoke the Insurrection Act. And we're talking with Dr. Richard Proctor here on the line from the Provis Institute. And we're here at Sunday, and it's the day of the signing of the invocation of the Insurrection Act, which again drastically changes things. Would you mind to summarize again? I guess we're going to need to wind down. Could you summarize again just the globalism, the corporate takeover, all that we're facing, but how does this change everything now? Apparently, we're going to keep our president for 4 more years. Apparently, he's able to be inaugurated. I guess there will be a new vice president. but lawfully the president will remain, it appears. That's the news reports that we're getting. I know you don't see it. You don't see it yet on the big guys' media, but you're not going to see it until they have to.
And remember, he's not going to tell us what he's going to do either.
Right.
He's not going to say what he's going to do. He's just going to do it.
Do it. Right.
And now, the globalists, those people started in 1776, the same year that the globalists of today started in 1776 on May the 1st, just the same time that we signed the Declaration of Independence on July the 4th. Two very important instances occurred that year.
Wow.
Big deal. There's another one too, but let's not worry about it.
Wow.
Those people have from that initial day, and I have eyewitness accounts written in, I have an eyewitness book written in 1798.
Mm-hmm.
The guy was there, he lived there, wrote a book, I have it. These people have a goal to destroy religion, family, and government. Mm-hmm. They want one world government in charge of everybody. We know best. We're going to tell you how to live and what to do. And if you want to see how it will be, when that happens, all you have to do is get a movie called Dr. Zhivago and watch that movie. It's an interesting movie, entertaining movie.
Wonderful.
But in addition, it teaches what's going to happen to us the minute people like Biden take over.
Well, it looks like he's not going to, and
excellent.
You know, yes,
we need to continue to pray for Trump that he can successfully get this all done. We need the Lord with us. We need the Lord with us.
Amen. And that's our hope. That's our hope, right, Dr. Proctor?
Yeah.
I mean, this is basically when it's all said and done. And can you give us some words of wisdom, words of hope here as we finish up our talk? I have a little bit of live chat showing up now. People are starting to wake up, so maybe let's continue a few more minutes if you don't mind.
I don't mind. I can handle it.
Thank you. So yes, I mean, our hope is in the Lord, right, and not in men, and
absolutely.
Yeah.
Ted, are you familiar with tipping points of history?
Well, yes, somewhat.
Okay, let me just mention a tipping point of history. Maybe I'll even mention two of them. Tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
A tipping point is when things are going really bad, and the Lord steps in to save it.
Yes.
It happened in Jerusalem. One of these countries that were attempting to destroy Jerusalem and the Jews, the Israelites. They came in and they were destroying city after city. And they came in when they took a city, they slaughtered everybody. Slaughtered them. Some of them they tortured to death. It was a terrible thing. And there they were surrounding Jerusalem, and it was Jerusalem's turn to be destroyed. Had it been destroyed, it would have put a problem in Christianity, because that's where Christ comes, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So the Lord said, I can't have this happen to our people. That night, the night before they were supposed to come in, the Jerusalem people anticipated that they'd be destroyed tomorrow morning. They were right there on pins and needles, just like we are. And the Lord said, no, you're not. And all that army died.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another tipping point. The Muslims were on their way from Spain into Europe. They were crossing up the Pyrenees, on their way over the Pyrenees into Europe to destroy Christianity, and they would have. And then we would have lost that fledgling beginning of Christianity right there. We would have lost it. Well, what happened? Back in the homeland of the force that was going to go across the Pyrenees, somebody important died, and they all went home to see how to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
A tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not coincidences. Those are divine intervention. And there's lots of them.
Yeah.
I believe there was a divine intervention in 2016 when Trump was elected the first time. There is now occurring another divine intervention, getting Trump back in again.
Yeah.
These are all divine help for our country. We need to understand divine help is how we're going to work, how it's going to work for us. We need to thank the Lord for that help, And we need to begin to try harder to live his commandments. We need to get our country back on righteousness rather than horrible wickedness.
Yes.
We need to do that.
Yeah. Well,
and that's an individual thing now. That's not necessarily a government thing. That's an individual thing. We all need to evaluate our righteousness. Is it in line with Christ?
mm-hmm.
If it's not, we need to realign it.
Amen. Well, we're talking with Dr. Richard Proctor, PhD, from the Provis Institute. You can find him on provisinstitute.com. I will put it on the notes from this program, but we're very, very fortunate to have him with us. And just if you can give us a couple more minutes, please, Dr. Proctor. There was something, I mean, we're talking today also. This is a day where President Trump has apparently invoked the Insurrection Act. He has signed it, and that is going to change everything, and apparently will remain as president for 4 more years. And it's going to throw out all the other things. And but I want to ask you, we had met actually months ago over a certain topic, which a certain man in Hawaii had taught me. But this is something that very strong is something that we didn't talk about. I just wanted to touch on, and that's called the color of law, and how everything's been twisted and done by proclamation, and it's the color of law. It's not a real law. Would you please talk to us a little bit about that so people will learn something about that?
Yes. The concept of color of law means shades of law. It means they're pretending they have powers they do not.
Mm-hmm.
In all cases, when color of law is exerted, edicts of under the cover of law, they are destroying our rights under the Constitution in all cases. People don't do color of law unless they're trying to take something away from us.
Right.
There are two titles, two USC title codes, Title 18 and Title 42. Title 18, Section 242 gives the penalties for color of law. It's against the law for any government official to ever do an edict of anything that he doesn't have the authority to do.
Yeah.
And the authority to do something stops at our Bill of Rights. If they are violating our Bill of Rights, they do not have that authority. You, as a person, if you encounter that problem, have the right, if you can find an honest judge, have the right to take that government official and put him in jail and get him fined by the government for violating your right. And the other one, Title 42, Section 1983,
yes.
Well, that one gives a good definition of how an attorney does it and the power that he has to do it.
I have it here. Actually, I could read a brief bit if you don't mind. The Section 1983. This says Section 1983 of Title 42 of the U.S. Code is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1871. This provision was formally enacted as part of the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 and was originally designed to combat post-Civil War racial violence in the southern states. Reenacted as part of the Civil Rights Act, Section 1983 is, as of the early 2000s, the primary means of enforcing all constitutional rights. And basically what it says is every person who under color of any statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage of any state or territory or the District of Columbia subjects or causes to be subjected any citizen of the United States or other person within the jurisdiction thereof to be deprived to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured by the Constitution and laws shall be liable to the party injured in an action at law, suit in equity, or other property proceeding for redress. So please tell us, what does that translate that? What does that actually say?
Okay, that means is that there are penalties described for varying crimes. This is a crime. So what that means is that you can get an attorney, please do that, get an attorney, and that attorney will take your statements to court and you will sue for redress criminal activities of that government official. What it means also, just take this as a thought, if a policeman stops you and gives you a fine because you're not wearing a mask or social distance and all that garbage in any state of the United States, and he takes you to prison, he has kidnapped you, and you then have the power of prosecution of a kidnapper.
Yes.
If he incarcerates you in jail, he's kidnapped you and incarcerated you and taken away your rights. Then the crime even gets worse. And when you read Title 18, Section 242, it even includes the death penalty and life in prison. If the violation is bad enough.
Let me read that a little bit. I have that right here, okay? That one says, whoever, under color of any law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or custom, willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured and protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both, and if bodily injury results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include the use, attempted use, or threatened use of a dangerous weapon, explosives, or fire, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, and if death results from the acts committed in violation of this section, or if such acts include kidnapping or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for any term of years or for life or both, or may be subject to death, penalty of death. So this is serious stuff, folks, and this is basically what happens, right, when a governor, mayor, anybody tries to tell you that you can't do something or you can't cross the street or park your car. But I mean, worse than that, they can't tell you, and there's no law to back it up. This is called color of law. That's a fake law, basically. Is that right, Dr. Proctor?
That is exactly right. And if the legislature passes a law that deprives you of any of those things, then that legislature, that group of people become subject to those fines and imprisonment.
And they can be held personally responsible from what I read. I mean, there are certain immunities.
Each one of them.
But yes, you can go personally after the governor, personally after your mayor, personally after your city attorney or prosecutor, or I mean, this is what needs to happen, and you can do that with an affidavit. Filing an affidavit gives you the power to do that, and there are people that will help you to do that, and I'll help you with information. If you want to email me, I'll put my email on this as well. But we just wanted to call it, that's called deprivation of rights under color of law. That's been the huge thing going on this whole year, and yet I've not seen hardly anybody ever use this or try to enforce this. And
because people don't know about it, they just meekly stay home. They're incarcerated in their own homes. We give in to being jailed in our own home. Well, that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we give in and do it willingly. Come on, folks. There's nothing to be afraid of. All we have is a flu. This year's flu has been targeted some other way to pretend like it's worse than anything we've ever seen before. It's all garbage.
Mm-hmm.
It's all garbage, every bit. I have physicians who have documented that the COVID-19 does not even exist. They can't purify it. They can't identify it. It doesn't exist.
Well, we have Dr. Richard Proctor here with us. We've had him as our guest for the last several minutes here. We thank you, Dr. Proctor, and I regret the technical problems, but we did manage to get out some of your wisdom. And please come back another time. If you would give me another chance, we'll get you on the air video wise, and would love to have you.
Let's make that work. Let's make that work.
Okay, we sure will.
We can have another talk in a week or two to talk about what's happened during the week, couldn't we?
That sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. Yes, sir. So thank you for helping us out, teaching us of your wisdom. And once again, I'd like to just make a plug for you, for your book, your school. This is Saving the Constitution. This is the work by Dr. Richard Proctor, Phd, who's also the dean, founder of the Provis Institute. You can find that Provis Institute.com. You can find his books. You can find his school. He has great teaching there. You get a degree in economics, and you get you a lot of wisdom. Just order the Liberty series. You got 2,200 pages that he compiled himself, and has a great index. I love the index because you can find things with that. And I thank you, Dr. Proctor. You're a great man, great American. We love you. Thank you for loving us, loving your country, and for writing that book and giving us that book.
Well, I just do the best I can do, Ted. I just do the best I can do. Nothing more than that.
Well, amen. That's all we can do. So thank you, folks, for joining us. We'll get back again soon. You can find me on YouTube, Geronimo 808, or I'm here on Facebook for the time being. And we love you. Thank you. It's Geronimo from Hawaii saying aloha. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. All right.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.